I guess like who imposes those deadlines? Is it like coming from you or is it coming from the outside to be producing the music in that way?
Uh, just the deadline that is your death, I guess. Life is short. um,
Yes.
so so that there's no time to waste there.
The ultimate deadline.
Yeah.
Welcome to Why Not Both, the podcast all about how our multiple passions shape our identity and our lives. I'm your host, Pam Schaefer, and our producer is Laura Studeris. This season, we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine. If you like what you hear, you can head over to our Patreon to support us directly and get transcripts of all of our episodes. Or you can come hang out with us on your favorite social media platforms, where we can be found under WNB the podcast. For this episode, we got to hang out with Elias Rønnenfelt, who is a musician and poet. I hope that you enjoy our chat. Welcome to Why Not Both, where we have internet and potentially trains.
Thank you. Thank you. How's it going?
It is going all right. It is it's kind of funny. Like I feel like it's almost timeless now that we can chat with people over all sorts of internet that I was like, I don't know what time it is where you are or where you are or even what's happening. Like I don't know the context even of where you are.
Where are you?
I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Okay, so I'm 8 hours into the future, I believe.
How's the future?
It's okay. I'm about to go to America tomorrow, and start a long tour. But right now I'm at my mother's house in Copenhagen, where
Oh.
I had dinner and checked in. Was watching PV's Big Adventure with my sister just before starting this. So yeah, a little sort of cozy family time before I blast off to New York tomorrow, and I won't have a calm minute for a while.
Wow. How long is the tour scheduled to be?
I'm gonna be gone for a month, and I think we have like 22, 25, something like this shows or something.
Wow. Does that ever get disorienting when you kind of dip in and out, like you said, that you're like having cozy family time, but then you're gone for a month? When you come back, what happens? Like, does it feel like kind of like your life is on pause, or how do you catch up then?
Um, like when I come back from for a long tour, how do I adapt into well, I mean, like it's. I think in the beginning, you establish a a syndrome where it gets very hard to adjust to being in one place because you get so used to just over and over and over again pulling yourself up by the roots,
Mm-hmm.
that you just live in a perpetual state of not really being able to plant yourself anywhere, and
Yeah.
that made me pretty rootless for a long time, having spent the better part of the last 10 years on the road. Um, so it wasn't really until COVID of all things that I ever tried having a fully fledged proper domestic stop of all this lunacy, and
Yeah.
yeah, and now I kind of get to have something that resembles my old schedule again, which is you come back to it and you're like, oh, this is what I used to do. This is madness, but it's but it's also good, you know.
Context is everything, where if that's what you're used to is the madness, then it doesn't seem like madness, but it's only when it's contrasted with something else that you're like, wait a second,
Yeah, yeah.
what was happening here? What was the domestic life that you established during COVID?
I don't fucking know. It's like, well, I guess that I was just not touring all the time. There's probably a lot of things that I learned from it, but also right now, I think now is the time, the season for not thinking about what um, what it was that you did in this couple of years that was a global shutdown, whatever the fuck, like now it's not the time to
Mm-hmm.
reflect or be smart. Like it just became kind of normal again. So let's just like live a little and like maybe it's not the time to reflect yet, you know?
It almost sounds like it's like kind of like processing like underground and that those things will sprout afterwards, but
Yeah, yeah,
maybe,
surely.
yeah.
But like it's just been like the summer and I just felt like I don't want to get wiser right now. I want to get dumb again, you know?
I smiled because I was just like, it sounds so relaxing being dumb sometimes. Like it sounds a lot more fun in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And thinking about the contrast of going on like a month-long tour versus watching Pee-wee's Big Adventure with your sister, like staying at I love that you're launching from your mom's house. I was just like that makes me really happy that it's like quite literally like flying out of the nest.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you gotta go
Oh.
chicken on your mama if you can, you know?
Well, one of my friends was saying that there's nothing quite like your mom's cooking. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, imagine if you gave the ingredients of like the things that your mom usually makes to someone else. They might use the exact same ingredients, but you'd be able to identify like which one was made by your mom. And I was like, oh, that's so true.
Well, she made risotto tonight, and it was brilliant.
Oh. Because especially when you're on tour, you're kind of at the whim of whatever food is around you.
Yeah, yeah, like that's one thing. Like home cooked food is something you don't really experience a whole lot or at all. That's
Yeah.
why, like when I you asked earlier if what do I do if I when I come back from a long tour like that and one of the things that I dream about like being able to do as one of the first is just the simple act of chopping an onion and and uh, and and having a pan on the stove because that's a domestic act that's just literally so common and simple, but it's just so far beyond
Yeah.
reach on a tour. So like that
Yeah.
kind of situates you back into like some non like that is what you're able to do when you're not on tour. You can chop an onion and you can fry it.
And that, I mean, it sounds like you said that kind of rootlessness, and now you have like roots. And so it might feel different touring this time now that you do have like more of those roots to come back to that you didn't have, like you said.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't take what I say for 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 too literal. Like yeah, I had roots before as well. Maybe I don't have roots now. I don't know these things.
You might be like a lotus plant that has its roots in the water and can go anywhere.
Well, I don't know.
Well, and thinking about being rootless, in some ways that comes in really handy because then you can adapt to wherever you're at. Like, and that's kind of the beauty of tour is that in some ways, like, wherever you're at, there are consistencies in tour. You know who you're going to be with. It's like summer camp, there's like a little pod of people, but also you can adapt to wherever you're at and play the show that night.
Yeah, I mean, and I think like I mean, being rootless is kind of like a more existential question than just the mere ability to be able to jump from city to city and play a few concerts and stuff. Um, I've, I know other people that are rootless or or have been rootless in extents that I couldn't claim.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
What do you feel about like the active movement appeals to you? Like, it was funny that my producer was like, ask him about trains. And I genuinely don't know why she asked me to ask you about trains,
Yeah, yeah,
but it.
I'm curious too. Like, what?
And I was just like, did he move around a lot? Was he a train robber? Did he hop on trains illicitly? Like, there's so many possibilities in my mind of like, I was like, oh, does this person like movement a lot?
I don't know. Yeah, okay. So I don't know if I've ever spoken publicly about trains before. So but we can talk about trains. I like them to begin with. They might be my favorite means of transportation. Um, yeah. What are some train highlights? We did. That's the night trains between Moscow and St. Petersburg. Um, that takes roughly 12 hours. Um,
Oh wow.
yeah, it was the first time in Russia, like years ago, before they went in and attacked Ukraine and all. And we had just played like a ruckus of the show in Moscow and had to go straight to the train station and board the night train to St. Petersburg. And it's an old train. I'm not sure exactly how old, but it's old, all right.
Mm.
And we have like a little coupe with bunk beds, and we can't open the windows in there, and the air is really bad. It feels like the air has been sitting there since the train had been built half a dozen decades ago
Oh
or
god.
something. So we can't really sleep, and we just start roaming the hallways. And yeah, then we keep on getting pulled into all these booths where we can't understand, like the people don't speak English, but you kind of realize that you're not really allowed to leave the room until you had like a great big swig of uh, whiskey or vodka sitting in a plastic bottle. Um and some strangers give us amphetamines too, and we get wired. And yeah, it felt like it lasted forever, and we couldn't drink any water. There was only like the vodka that people was giving us, because like the tabs, like the water that was coming out of those were brown, so it didn't seem drinkable.
No.
And it just ended up like back in bunk bed, totally wired on Russian speed and cheap liquor that we were kind of force fed. And people are in the top bunks are like puking down on everybody's shoes, and it's a filthy nightmare. That was the longest seeming train ride I ever been on. Um, but in hindsight, it was kind of cool. Um,
That sounds like pure chaos in like a film.
yeah, but normally on trains, like I find that I sleep really well on them. I'm horrible with sleeping in cars and on airplanes. Um, I'm jealous of the people who can just head into a car or an airplane and just nod off because that would.
Yeah.
But trains I can sleep on. There's something about the rhythm of it that
Yeah.
that kind of lulls you to sleep in a nice way. And I actually have a theory about um, lucid dreaming and trains. If you have a seat next to the window, and you know how when the train is passing by trees and there's sunlight behind the
Mm-hmm.
trees, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have usually a little curtain you can draw in front of the window.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the flicker of sun behind those trees filtered through the curtain, but still a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of that flicker will go through the curtain. Am I making sense?
You're totally making sense.
Um, it's creating like a subtle flicker,
Yeah.
but even your eyes closed will probably register,
Yeah.
um, which I think is enough to sort of trigger like a little signal from the real world that would make the possibility of a lucid dream higher. The only lucid dreams I ever had was on trains through that, and my theory is because of that.
Would you want to share any of those lucid dreams?
Um, I don't want to go into detail, but I managed to fly for a little bit before I woke up in one of them.
Was it like a levitaty or was it like a flappy flappy? Like people fly differently in dreams. It's fascinating when people learn how to like fly in lucid dreams. Everyone kind of has their own method.
Yeah, no, I was just walking around like in an abandoned sort of post-apocalyptic version of my childhood neighborhood, and and then suddenly it was like that snap. Oh, I'm awake. This is a lucid dream. I can do whatever I want,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the thought, okay, let's see if I can pull this off, and you just sort of like raise from the ground,
Whoop.
but then it's like the whatever dream God punishes you for being so cocky, so you can only do great things like that for a second before you wake up. You know.
Right. Lucid dreaming is so tough because exactly that. It's like the little stopgap. The little dream god is just like, wait a second, you've caught on to the magic of this. Like, it's almost like once you observe it, once you notice it, it's very hard to hold on to it.
Yeah, yeah, I find that. Um, but yeah, we
Well,
did we did,
it's
we did another tour on trains through Eastern Europe and like the Balkan countries, Croatia and Macedonia and Serbia, and that was wild too. Like the trains are quite old there as well, so
mm-hmm.
what would be a 4 hour car ride becomes a 8 or 9 hour train ride because they're just slow.
Yeah.
But they're kind of fascinating. They're also just kind of like time capsules, and you bribe the conductor or the whatever you call the ticket guy with a few packets of cigarettes, and then you can smoke on the train and like yeah. But yeah, that was quite memorable, like crossing through that part of Europe with on those old trains.
hmm.
And then we would just, we only brought up our guitars, and then some locals would come and pick us up at the station and take us to the venue, and then onto the train the next day. It's a really nice way of touring, actually. Um, yeah.
That sounds way more connected also to the people that then you're playing music with and the audience. Like it seems like there's less division then between you and the audience.
Well, the audience doesn't know whether we came by car or by train.
Oh, but like the people that like, bring you back and forth to the train and did you stay with people or like where did you crash or did you sleep on the trains?
On that tour, I think we had hotels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause that, oh my gosh, one of my friends was touring around the States and was literally just staying at like audience members' houses. Like
E-
that night, they'd be like, all right, who can house us?
Oh,
Like,
that's what we did in the early days. Yeah. yeah,
Yeah.
we did full
Yeah.
tours, like just if we didn't know anybody in that city or had connections, it was just kind of like, okay, I have to make friends tonight then, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm too old for that shit.
That reminds me, someone made the comment over dinner of an acquaintance who's in their 50s. And they were saying, oh, thank God this person's married because he'd just be sleeping on some 24-year-old's couch over and over again. And it made me think about that. Like, how do you age out of those things? Like, when is it appropriate to be like, ah, yeah, I'm going to crash on someone's couch? And when are you like, maybe you shouldn't? Like,
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not afraid of a stranger's couch, but like, but I can't play every night and tour like that and like do that kind of survival. No, it's like I've done my fair share of that.
yes,
Also,
you've
like
done your
like
time.
sometimes you end up with great people, and sometimes you end up with like meth heads or like borderline gang members with fucking machine guns and machetes lying around. Like we've been to all avenues of housing life. Yeah,
You know that you've crossed a threshold when there's just machetes lying around.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, that's certainly a unique situation. It does sound like you've lived a life of enchanted danger.
Yeah, funny enough, it's like it. I can count a few times on the top of my head. We ended up in sketchy houses with heavy weaponry.
This, like I said, it sounds, and maybe it's just because I'm always thinking in narratives and dreams from Los Angeles, but it's like, this sounds like the plot of a movie. It's like, all right, we've got the train ride with Russian speed. We've got the house full of machetes. We've got, like, I was just like, this makes for a very, very fascinating narrative. I'm just like, okay, what's the through line? Playing music through it all. Like, is
Yeah.
it do you,
Well, I hope I won't have any too movie worthy sleeping arrangements anytime soon on this tour, at least.
there we go. There we go. Maybe just, a light blog from the mid 2000s sleeping experience. Is it, I mean, do you think that you would want to travel this much outside of music? Like, or is the music what takes you everywhere?
um, I felt like I used to whenever I had like a few months off. I would constantly try and get away. Like the idea of being in Copenhagen for more than a few weeks, even without having anything to do, would like frighten me. Um,
Mhm.
so I would as often as I could sort of run away, pretty aimlessly, and and in sometimes dubious situations, you know, and that was sometimes fantastic and sometimes a little rough. Um,
Mhm.
I think I think I have a little less of that panicky need to roam. Like
Hmm.
it's it's also like you're talking to me right when I'm supposed like about to go on this big tour. So the idea or prospect of home seems very enticing right now.
Yeah.
As a grass is always greener sort of thing. But I mean, like I I bet when I'm in the middle of America and like in it, like it'll probably feel great.
Definitely. It's always, at least I find for me, like the anticipation of an experience is sometimes worse than anything that happens in the experience itself.
Oh yeah, I know. I know all about that, especially like the week leading up. Like I think as per today, I've reached sort of like a place of acceptance where like, okay, we're doing this. I know what's about to happen. I just don't want to pack my bag. I
Yes.
hate that, but yeah, like it always has like at least if you're leaving for a while, it has like this end of an era sort of gravity to it that like wherever you just spent a substantial amount of time, you're about to leave that place, and there's like like a slight melancholy that kind of comes with that, like you sort of
Yeah.
turning your back on where you just had that portion of your life, and now you head into like another portion, and like that's a weird sort of sadness that comes with that. But then once you get going, you kind of like, oh, fuck where I came from, let's go.
It reminds me of like the different ways of getting in a pool. Um, like I tend to, I'll like test the water a little bit with my foot, and if I'm in the mood to get my hair wet, I'll full on like jump in as fast as possible. If I'm gonna be just lounging, maybe I'll just keep my feet in. The hair is the deciding factor because there's a lot of hair involved in this maneuver. Um, but I've noticed that there are some people that instead of just jumping in, they'll ease themselves into the pool, but like complain the whole way. And I'm like, no, no, no. You don't want to be hanging out in the liminal space where you're like half wet, half dry, half in the pool, half cold, half hot. It's like just like get yourself in there.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely with pools or large bodies of water plunge. I can't ease myself in like that. That's gonna be a long tedious process. So I gotta get it over with. I'm not
yes.
much of a swimmer in general, so
Ah, that was my favorite thing to do as a child, and still is one of my favorites, is to go into any body of water. And it doesn't matter how cold it is, apparently, because I will just dunk myself in it. I'm just like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
how exciting. Boom. But that mode, it's almost like we almost notice to be melancholy or complainy like when we're in between. It's like if you're in the previous state or then you're in the future state, like you're good. Whereas when you're in the in-betweenies, that's when it feels really weird. Like the anticipation.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that there is a slight relief of having tried these things quite a few times before, so you kind of start recognizing your own patterns, and then
Yes.
and then you can convince yourself that the world is not actually hanging on a string. It's just it's just the workings of things.
Yes. And I'm curious, now you are jumping into tour and into music in that way. What were you doing just prior to, tonight watching Pee Wee? Like, what were you up to other than music just prior to this?
um, like today.
Yeah, or like in the past few months, like what have you been outside of music? Like, what's been kind of fueling you prior to tour?
Uh, well, I mean, like this the summer has kind of been like May and June. We were on the road in America and European festivals, but then the last few months, it's been like we've been skipping out of town once or twice a week, playing a festival here and there, but the majority of the time, kind of being in Copenhagen, and uh, yeah, been hanging out with a girl, and I've been trying to get out of town a little bit when I can, not too far, just you can take a train to like something a little greener. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, what have I been doing? I don't know. been spending time in the rehearsal space with the boys, and like we finally like kind of hit an ore or whatever it's called, you know, like um yeah, so like new songs are starting to form in a really nice way, and it feels
Ooh,
very exciting. um
I love that feeling. New song feeling is such a good feeling.
yeah, we on this tour, like we're gonna start playing like a new song for the first time in what feels like forever. But it's nice because like, you know, this set that we've been playing all summer, and like kind of like what we have on our repertoire, it just takes like one song or two new songs for everything to feel kind of new again. Like so
Yes.
somehow that new song will kind of like meddle with all the other songs and kind of makes everything feel like a little less rehearsed and alive again, you know.
Well, that's yet again it I what popped in my mind was like context, where it's like, you have these songs and they're in the context of the set list, but then when you have a new song, it suddenly changes the context for your old songs. Like suddenly you can then see them through almost like a different light and you can hear them in a different way because that new song has showed up.
Yeah, and then you're not just playing a bunch of old stuff, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think about like where do new songs come from? I think that's why I'm fascinated by what people do outside of their primary passions, where it's like what are the things that then bring in those new songs? Because I at least find like if I feel almost like I'm running on empty as a person, like it's really difficult for me to allow new songs in. Whereas when I kind of like go out and explore and kind of like fill up my cup, as it were, like as a person, then like new songs are like, oh, we're welcome here. There's like a little garden where I can plant myself.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Um, yeah, that cup that needs to be filled can be a terrifying thing too.
Definitely. Definitely. Because we don't know what has to go in that cup to make the new songs show up.
Yeah, that's why the most terrifying thing north is finishing a project, because like you've had that cup of whatever juice that makes the stuff, and then you can sort of latch onto that or attach yourself to that, and then you emptied your cup, and then you're just empty. Like you can enjoy whatever you made for a little while, but then you just sit back there with an empty cup, and then whatever
Yeah.
desperate measures you need to go on about filling that again in order to do something. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's strange to me when people describe, I guess, what people call like a feeling of accomplishment, like when something's done, because I relate to what you just said because I don't really feel that way either. It's like when I finish something, I don't usually feel excited that I finished it because I'm usually excited doing it. Like, and if I finished it, it means that I'm done. And then I'm like, but wait, I was enjoying that, and now it's finished.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I usually
and
have like
and
a
it
week or two where I'm on top of the world, but then I'm not. Yeah.
right. Yeah, because like I found that, I never related when I heard other interviews with artists where they're just like, how do you feel now that your album's out? Or like things like that. And people are like, I feel great. And I'm like, do they? Like, do other people feel great? Like, there's, like you said, there's like that week or two. But then I'm just like, do other people's like minds and bodies not want to just go to like the thing? And I was like, oh, maybe other people feel differently about this. Like, and it's interesting
Yeah,
hearing
I
about like,
mean, it, it was a like when I had done this for a little while, that it was a harsh realization to come to and find out, and what a scam this is, that the satisfaction is so temporary, like
Yes.
you quickly realize that you work incredibly hard for a very long time to finish something, only to be fulfilled for a very short amount of time, and then you're back where you started of deep unfulfillment. And yeah, you only get to have those little victories for very briefly.
Yes.
But I mean,
Yes.
that's also why I think if I ever did something and I was satisfied, and the satisfaction was just kind of permanent, I'd be terrified. Like,
Yeah.
was that it then? So it has to be
Right.
that pendulum sort of limbo between you only get to be satisfied for a little.
Well, that dissatisfaction almost leads to like the impetus to do the next thing. Cause it's like otherwise, yeah, that a, a life of not doing things, like a life of just being like satisfied, like, hey, I did the thing. Like that might be really nice for someone. That doesn't resonate for me personally, though. Like I can't imagine that life. Like I genuinely can't picture what that would feel like. To
Nah,
just be
man,
like, well, I'm done. Guess I'll sit here.
I wanna meet that person of just
I so
permanent satisfied guy. I wanna meet him.
be like, okay, permanent satisfied guy, if you're listening, we have some questions for you. I'm like, I don't know about that life. Cause yeah, like a friend of mine was talking about in creative fields, it's like if you don't feel like driven to do the thing, like don't do it because creative fields are often extremely unstable, stressful, all sorts of things. That it's like if you don't have that innate drive to do it, you probably shouldn't. And it sounds like if you have an abundance of that drive, if anything, where it's like you almost are compelled to do what you do.
Yeah, but I don't fully subscribe to that. Like sometimes you're also just gonna fucking do what you don't want to, or create the space for it when it's the last thing you would want to do.
Hmm.
If you were just to sit around and only act on something if like supreme inspiration were to strike you or something, I would do very little. um so some of it is also just sitting down and being present for something to happen, and kind of forcing yourself to be in that uncomfortable space of not really knowing where to go.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I don't think you should only do it when you feel compelled. Uh,
How do you make
you
the space for it? Like, what do you do to make the space for that discomfort that then things do break through it? I think you're very right on that.
like yeah, I've tried various things. So sometimes I've been like going through a thing where I would sit and write for at least an hour a day, um, where I would sort of take 1 hour. I say that there has to be 1 hour in the day that I sit down wherever that is and work, and I can extend that hour if I want to,
Mm-hmm.
but at least an hour, and and then it's okay if I only write one sentence, or if nothing happens. Like there's no pressure. You're just creating that space for something to happen. That
Mm-hmm.
And if that space is not there, like the thing that might visit you that day never had like a window to come to you. So yeah, like that's been really good. Just to make sure you're there for it. um
Hmm.
and yeah, sometimes if I'm working intensely on something, or we have a record to do, or lyrics to write. I've sometimes borrowed spaces to write in, or traveled away to do things just to be removed from my own bedroom. Like I find like your own
Yeah.
bedroom is not the best place to do work, um,
I find the same.
especially because your bed is in there, and that's the enemy of work. You know.
Well, and I thought about context again. Like, I'm in the room where I do a lot of my writing and reflecting, but it's not my bedroom. Like, my bedroom is where I go to rest, and I read a lot in my bedroom, but I don't often write a lot in my bedroom. I might journal occasionally. Like, there's a chair in my bedroom I will sometimes sit on to journal,
Yeah,
but like, I don't journal in bed. Like, and I don't create when I'm in bed. Like, that's not what that's for. It's like, it's a different space that then allows me to invite in inspiration.
yeah, yeah. I once made the mistake of writing the lyrics for a entire album in my bedroom, and it became the most sort of like egotistical, self-involved, like inwards looking shit ever. Like,
Maybe that's what needed to come visit.
yeah, yeah, it was good for what it was, but yeah, I don't subscribe to the bedroom anymore.
And then there are some people that I've spoken to that they like to be in their bedroom or like in a place of ultimate comfort to write, and I found that really interesting. Where I'm like, I don't make
Yeah,
myself,
to each their own, of course.
yeah, because I don't want to be uncomfortable, but I want to be removed from my usual environment when I'm writing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would. It's also sometimes it seems like your own ideas are flocking around you, or you're surrounded by them, um, and sometimes you have to grasp pretty far to get one. Um, so like sometimes I find it very easy to ride anywhere, or on the road, or something, and sometimes I find it like even the prospect of having to write anything in the whirlwind that is being on tour and stuff seems impossible.
Yeah. Well, and I guess like who imposes those deadlines? Is it like coming from you or is it coming from the outside to be producing the music in that way?
Uh, just the deadline that is your death, I guess. Life is short. um,
Yes.
so so that there's no time to waste there.
The ultimate deadline.
Yeah.
Like you said, even the existential moment of, oh, how rooted are you or not? Like that seems like another big question of like what is driving you to produce. And I mean that is very valid to be like, hey, death.
Yeah.
Like, a rather unforgiving boss.
Yeah, sometimes I think of how like you only have like a limited amount of time, and if you didn't capture like those songs and whatever you're trying to do, like those possible things that was, because I very much think of it as something you have to catch, like they're sort of these mysterious sort of, they come from a place, but but if you didn't manage to sniff it out and catch on to it, then the opportunity is lost.
Yes.
So yeah, I do think that that's a, or maybe it's just like a false sense of urgency I create for myself. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's no time to be wasted. Oh, and I also do waste a lot of my time, but yeah, there's an urgency.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it's it's almost that pendulum swing where you can't be urgent all the time and you can't be wasting time all the time. It sounds like it
Yeah,
has to kind of bounce between the two.
yeah. Sometimes I beat myself up for like I wish I was like ultra disciplined and could spend like all my waking hours like chasing like um, ideas and stuff, but it doesn't work like that. You know, it's impossible.
Yeah. And also, if you chase an idea too hard, that idea, at least in my experience, it runs away faster.
Yeah, I don't work like that. I need to bullshit around a little bit. You know.
I need to sometimes like seduce an idea into being instead of being like
Yeah,
yoink.
yeah,
You need to be like, "Oh, come here, idea. Look, it's
yeah.
nice.
You
There's
need to
candles."
get a little loose every once in a while.
Exactly, exactly. Make a nice little cozy nest for the idea. Make it want to come round.
Right.
Oh, well, it's been such a pleasure getting to talk to you. I feel bad that I'm taking you away from your last evening with your family before your tour.
That's okay, man. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of Why Not Both. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to like us and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. You can also come hang out with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, both on Instagram and on Twitter. This season, we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine. Under the Radar is a nationally distributed print, music, and entertainment magazine and website. You can find them at www.undertheradarmag.com and feel free to support them on Patreon. Extra special thanks to our producer, Laura Studeris, who is literally a rock star. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you next episode. Thank you.